Though the sports biopic remains a formulaic by its very nature genre of movie, Gran Turismo is not going to make you change your liking or disliking of the genre, but if you fall into the former camp of being someone who likes the sports biopic genre, you are going to have a good time with this movie. Nico here from the Silver Screen Dudes, and this is my review for the new Gran Turismo movie from PlayStation Studios. Now, amidst a plethora of seemingly mediocre, middle-of-the-park reviews that I've noticed from other critics, I'm actually here to offer some counter-programming because I had a really good time with this movie. Let's get one thing, the biggest con of the movie, out of the way immediately. The fact of the matter is, this is a sports biopic movie. It's a true story, and as such, because of the genre in which it sits and because of its very design, you know where the movie's going to end up. But while sports genres of yesteryear, such as Cool Runnings and Eddie the Eagle, offered something fresh, and although I don't put this in the same level of greatness as those two movies, I do think this is worth your time. Because although we all know what the end game of the movie is going to be, obviously it's a sports biopic, and if the end game wasn't what you thought it was going to be, they wouldn't make the movie. The means by which we get to that end is a genuinely fascinating story. Who knew, and this is a true story, who knew that a guy who was really good at Gran Turismo on Sony PlayStation would become so good that he'd end up being a real-life racer who competed in Le Mans. Now, if that story sounds like it fascinates you, you are going to enjoy this movie. If that description doesn't evoke anything in you, well, yeah, then this movie's probably not for you. There's very little I can reproach this movie for negatively. I thought the racing scenes, for me, were edge-of-the-seat stuff. I didn't have any issues with the acting from some of the newcomer actors whatsoever. To be honest, the only acting I would slightly reproach would be that of Orlando Bloom, who I'm a big fan of, but who didn't deliver the best performance of his career, shall we say. David Harbour really stood out. He was the heart and soul of this movie. He was what Hugh Jackman was to Eddie Edwards in Eddie the Eagle, if you've seen that. The editing in this film was good. The racing scenes were good. I like some of the decision makings they had with the villain. I like the way the narrative unfolded. I'm looking at this and then reading reviews online and seeing people not enjoy it, and I'm left scratching my head. Top to bottom, I had an absolute blast with this movie, and as I've said already, I don't really know what I can reproach it for. There are accusations being leveled of it of having product placement. It's like, well, it's a Sony video game quote-unquote adaptation. It's very loosely an adaptation. The Gran Turismo games don't really have a storyline per se, and so this doesn't exactly borrow, it just uses that licensing. So of course you're going to have some tips of the hat and some Easter eggs to the gamers out there, myself being one of them. But I didn't find it offensively bad as far as product placement goes. All in all, I'm going to give the Gran Turismo movie a very solid 8 out of 10. The only real things that I think detract from it are where the plot ends up, which is obviously utterly predictable, and a little bit of ham-fisted acting from Orlando Bloom. Oh, and the editing for some points had some pacing issues, which were then subverted with 2 montages. I'm not a fan of montages, and this movie had 2 of them to make the process faster of where we go with our narrative. So on that basis, it doesn't get a 9. It certainly doesn't get a perfect score, but it is utterly enjoyable. It's a fun time at the cinema. It's edge of your seat stuff when the racing gets going, and it's an endearing story. If this is your genre, what more do you really want? I love this movie. I suggest you guys go and see it. And if you're looking for something else and you're not really thinking Gran Turismo could be your thing, I definitely don't go and see the Meg 2, and you can see why you shouldn't see the Meg 2 in the video right here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys very soon.